Did you ever find that your company might be going out of business and then you had a Hail Mary with an acquirer who then also fell through? Well, that was a conversation I had with Mishel Wong of Bo at Startup Fest 2025 in Montreal, Canada. We talk about her company, Bo, which takes plastics and has restaurants recycle and reuse them so that there's less plastic waste in the world, and her journey from finding product market fit to running out of runway, to finding an acquirer, to losing the acquirer, to finding another acquirer. Well, you get the drift. Have a listen and tell me what you think.
Mishel, thanks for joining us. Why don't you tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Hello, I'm Mishel. I'm the founder of Bo. We are trying to change the world and change the way people consume packaged products. So specifically for takeout foods and beverages, we think that make, use, and discard just doesn't make sense in today's world. So we're trying to make it so that there's a tech-enabled solution to replace all that waste.
So give me an example use case.
So we have takeout containers that we might serve at a festival where before all those trays that you use are disposable, we rent them to now event organizers so that they can have a zero waste event where everybody eats and then just like a restaurant, but on a massive scale, return all of them to return stations. It gets washed and then redistributed to next events. On a business level, it's smart because we amortize the cost of inventory over numerous uses. And on a from the event's perspective, they end up having a positive impact from having less waste.
Right. And then are you you're shipping the containers to the different locations, you're the ones washing them or cleaning them properly?
That's correct. We operate on 4 verticals. We have physical packaging products that needs to be functional yet impact positive compared to disposables.
Yeah.
We have a tech track and trace that creates digital twins of these products to measure how many times they can be reused. And third, we have warewashing. So physically, who's going to take care of processing all these containers so that they are reused numerous times and have better impact.
And just a dumb question, the environmental impact of shipping them back and forth. I don't know how you compare apples to oranges, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. Shipping them, picking them up, washing them, that is still a less of a footprint than just throwing them out or creating biodegradable containers or something like that?
That's a life cycle analysis question. And I actually went through that rabbit hole when somebody told me, oh, we just got wheat-based plastic straws that are amazing and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And then the next time I returned, they went back to paper products. And I'm like, what happened? And they're like, well, it turns out that making those straws uses a lot more energy. It's heavier on transport, blah, 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 blah. So apart from actually thinking about how long a product lasts on the planet after discarding, you actually have to think all the resources it takes to make them, to transport them, to distribute them before it gets used. And then after that, it's the end of life cycle. So in our containers case, we actually did studies to study when you make a container, how many uses you need to make before it becomes better than single use.
That's actually a good point because I didn't think of the fact that you have them made too once.
Right.
As opposed to each one of those, even if they're plastic, they're made each time and thrown out each time. So
Yes.
they are actually trucked to the location. Right?
And what's worse is that means we need to hit a certain threshold of reuse before it's better, because otherwise you're just chucking a really robust container into the waste stream.
That's really cool. So you found where did you found traction in those spaces that you mentioned? When did you go to market with this?
We started this 3 years ago, and we started with restaurants, which turned out to be the worst nut to crack. Because we're talking about all these unrelated businesses, and you need to install an infrastructure, kind of like a city does with waste management, but like a private company is doing this, not with tax dollars, but with their own resources, and have to have a price point that matches what's already on the market in terms of make, use, discard. Right. So we started with restaurants and quickly realized that there's other ways to get a better scale and have a cost per unit that's much more competitive to be closer to what disposable products are. So these would be the closed loop systems, kind of like the cafeterias of companies, festivals, events, caterers. So all of those make it easier to just circulate.
One gigantic customer rather than a last mile problem of how the hell do we optimize for this?
But ultimately, the goal is for society at large to be able to have these containers and recognize them as much as you would recognize a recycling symbol.
Right. So so you've ended up with those kinds of conferences, events like the one we're at right now. Is your product is here, if I'm not mistaken?
That is correct.
Yeah.
So what's really cool, what we've seen is it's not just getting the yes from the organizer, but year after year, we notice that consumers actually learn. It's a surprise. At the beginning, you're like, well, how hard could it be? You just explain to people. No, you get a higher loss rate at the beginning when people are not sure if this actually goes to a different stream, and it does.
Yeah.
And by this year, when people come back, they're like looking for the return containers. Like, okay, I know they exist somewhere because we've been through this before.
Oh,
so
interesting. Okay.
we're already seeing behavioral change just through like exposure, and we're looking at the tipping point where people will be expecting to see this at event and maybe kicking up a fuss just a little bit when they realize that, wait, you're still using the old model of things that gets tossed out. What are you, in the year 2020?
So how do you, I get there's like a certain amount of capital required to like get all the create and distribute, like make the product in the first place. One very quick question. How long do the containers last for typically?
They're designed for 1,000 users, but this is talking about 1,000 washes through an industrial dishwasher.
Right.
So when you're like launching containers at large, you're dealing with users who might be more careful or less careful. Some might cut steak in their takeout containers, and others that might play football with them.
Right.
So we're still learning as we go to see like how users actually interact with these products between early adopters and eventually the mainstream.
And how do you find customers?
We do B2B2C. So what's great is that we head to the businesses to make it the default option. So as long as the value proposition for the business is every use you make of these containers is going to be cheaper than your single use, then you don't need to argue with users, because it's the restaurant themselves who are going to be telling their users,
Sure.
This is a new way to go.
Right. No, I get it. I get like the consumers aren't buying anything. It is B2B, isn't it? There's
It's
no
B2B with the C using the containers,
but they're
and
not buying.
potentially paying a deposit.
They're paying a deposit.
Yes.
Oh, so you make money if they don't, if they.
We
Whatever,
try not
but it's
to.
right, but exactly. But it's really about B2B. My point is,
Correct.
you pitch corporations,
Yes.
you pitch, industrial whatevers, you pitch events, and you're like, this is us. And then do you basically pitch the economic argument and they're just like, yeah, for sure? Or what, like, why?
You'd be actually surprised at how the problem's actually pulling us. So as much as consumers might be like a little confused right now when we do launch with different partners, restaurants, events organizers, they're already looking for better alternatives than like anything compostable, recyclable, because we know that those are not working.
Right.
So there
is
a
the
pull
law
from the market.
stopping them? Are laws around the world stopping them from plastic? Or is it they're just like, we probably shouldn't use plastic because our customers don't want plastic? Or like, where are we at in the plastic part of that equation?
It's a mix of both, between the governments having landfills that are at capacity, and also there's an agenda for like, let's say, zero waste towards, it's a moving target. So it's zero waste towards
2095, baby.
Exactly. So essentially, we're working in conjunction with legislations that's coming that makes societal change more feasible in terms of a startup scope. And at the same time, there are consumers that are getting more savvy about like, well, they're at least eco-anxious. So they're trying to make sure that they're not contributing to the problem.
That's awesome. So where are you at with the business?
So we are pretty excited that this year we've essentially tripled the B2B partnerships that we've had in the event space. Okay. And we find that that's letting more users be exposed to our products. And by exposure, it also makes it easier for us to convince more partners to say, hey, the user base that knows and understands this is bigger than you think. Right. And for us to continue like growing this into an actual business. So we want to prove ultimately that reuse is not only something good for society, but it's a profitable business. As long as we don't have taxes subsidizing waste streams continually, there is room for something that's made to reduce waste and at the same time have an investment that's long-term payback.
And you raise money for this ever? Or is all
we're raising money, but it's very, very challenging when you don't really fall neatly into a bucket.
Right.
And for sure, like this year, everybody's talking about how this is exceptionally difficult due to like macroeconomics changes, growth in different technology. I'm not going to say the two letters that everybody's talking about.
Yeah.
And what we're looking at is more strategic partnerships so that we don't have to build all the infrastructure, but leverage what's already there, which is in the spirit of circular economy as we are in.
Yeah. Are you going to keep recording? I want to ask about what happened. Like, can we go?
We can go through that.
So, okay. Whatever you do, just say we're recording stuff. So it's expensive and time consuming to run this as business. You need to run this as business. We have talked, listeners, readers, watchers. We've met before multiple times. You were being acquired last time we spoke.
That's correct. And it's been a roller coaster ride. So we were raising last year and eventually learned that it's we don't fit neatly into the VC
Yeah,
model.
yeah.
And with the strategic partnerships that we looked at, there's actually businesses that have an infrastructure that really neatly matches us, let's say in terms of reverse logistics capabilities or just distribution channels in food packaging. So we've looked into those, and currently we are going through due diligence with a potential partner. So fingers crossed.
Right.
It's the first time I've gone through something like this, and I'd say I didn't realize at which point it's similar yet very different from raising money. We're talking about a full integration into an existing organization that has its own processes and its way of being.
Right.
So I would, as an advice to myself, maybe 6 months back, would be to look closer at synergies and how operationally you can integrate, because there has been discussions where things didn't quite work out when the reality set in of we're not linear. We're not doing manufacturing, distribution, and then sale, and then that's end of story. So the reverse logistics piece is very challenging in what we do. And the right partnership can either help us leverage something existing so that we can cut down our costs, or eventually it will fall apart, the deal, if they realize that, hey, this is not something we actually want to touch.
And it strikes me as interesting because it's like, I almost feel like, and this is just maybe human nature, I feel like you do the deal and then you're like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Like I was running a company that was acquired, I mean, in theory it was supposed to work, and then you do it and then you're like, oh wow, none of these things work the way that you think. So you actually were figuring that out before the deal was done?
So in our previous offer that we were evaluating, it felt a lot like getting engaged. And in my very naive mind, I'm like, oh, well, this is going to happen. Like, this is just like due processes that you go through. As long as we didn't lie about anything we presented, it will work out. But just like in a relationship and marriage, maybe when one side didn't quite realize what they're getting into and aren't entirely transparent about the things that they might be concerned about, then at the altar, and this is what happened to us at the altar, it could be like something like, by the way, I didn't actually want kids, even though like you specifically said we're raising 5 kids. Like, how do we still move forward? Like, can you live with like no kids?
Right.
And that's where, like, an entrepreneur, you're like, okay, so either I throw my vision completely to the winds, or
you say
you make the tough decision and then you need to find another partner.
So last question before we wrap up. You're looking at other partners. What is the thing that you've learned in between those scenarios?
You mean the hour in between the two?
Yeah, the hour. Well, you're going in more educated.
Yes.
With this negotiation or these negotiations. What are the things you're like, now I'm what's the notes to yourself for this time around?
So like I said, the nugget of wisdom would be, it's the same thing as a relationship. Communicate the most difficult part, the most ugly part of what you are first.
Right.
So are you sure you want to handle reverse logistics or the washing, everything that goes with trying to change consumer behavior?
Yeah.
And you need to make sure that your potential partner is honest about it as well.
Right.
So
that's the other thing. Is like people say, yeah. And then you get it, then later you go to the altar and it's still, so I mean, like, I think
I avoided the question the first time around. I didn't want to look at it too closely. So I think this time I really squeezed and make sure that, are we walking into this with both our eyes wide open? And because the other player also has a lot of experience in this type of like merger acquisitions. So I think that really helped in that, well, we like, the thing that really reassured me was when he was saying how they recently made an acquisition and the extra service offering would really fit under the umbrella of like what we do. Right. So in my head, we're already kind of fitting into the home of that structure.
Right.
So it's the learning is that don't be afraid to talk about the ugly things first, because it will resurface anyway. Right. So hammer it home is like,
you want kids, right?
You like want kids, right? Without makeup, I just woke up. Like, is this really something you can live with?
Yeah. Got it. All right. Well, thank you. People want to find out more about Bo. Where do they go?
They can either follow us on Instagram, which we really appreciate, at BoPaq MTL, BoPaq MTL, or you can also follow me on my adventures and my selfie-nanigans with a whole bunch of really smart people like yourself on my Instagram, on my LinkedIn page, Mishel Wong. Shel Wong, Wong.
Awesome. Thanks very much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Lovely to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my newsletter in the description below, and see you next time.